banking relationship can literally make you rich. It's not the sexiest topic in the world when it comes to finances. I know hardly nobody covers it on the internet when you look at the financial content gurus that are out there. But I am somebody who's built the entire channel under the premise that you can literally build real wealth from scratch using your banking relationships as the foundation. I ran a poll on my channel basically asking what would be, outside of interest rates, what would be the primary reason one would switch their primary bank. So there were options like online mobile app banking. There were options like, let's take a look here. So there were online mobile app taking, online experiences, lower ATM fees, better security features and fraud protection, personalized financial advice, and dedicated banker. These were the primary reasons that were available. And it was about a 50-50 between superior mobile app and online experiences and personalized financial advice and dedicated banker. So I want to break down in this quick live stream. It's not going to be too long, but I want to get into the weeds without having to do the structure of a normal video around the value, three major ways in particular, how your banking relationship can truly start helping you to build real wealth. The fundamental premise or the fundamental pieces in place, the pillars in place to building wealth oftentimes are going to be managed around cash flow. It's going to be credit or financial reputation, and it's going to be your network. When you leverage your banking relationships properly, you nail all three of these at one time plus some on your journey to building real wealth in this system. And believe it or not, those of you who may be taking this for granted, some of you, hopefully most of my pioneers that watch the channel regularly aren't, but some of you that may brush across this content, sitting here trying to figure out why this is even relevant towards being wealthy. Most of the richest people in the world have exceptional banking relationships. And the primary drivers on their team, their family offices, etc., are bankers, lenders, advisors, people that work in that setting. Yes, there are other people that are very important in that, but trust me when I tell you, there's no complete team for a wealthy individual or a family office or anything of the sort that does not include a banker/lender, period. That team does not exist if money is at the table. So I want to help put that perspective in place, because this whole channel is truly around getting most of you to understand that you can actually build that family office like, dedicated banker like setting, even when you're working class, and work your way up. Many people don't understand this. If you leverage your banking relationships right, you can do this at the 5-figure, 6-figure level and truly get the benefits of, banks and what they have to offer when you leverage those relationships effectively. So if your goal is to build, a multi-million-dollar stock portfolio, if it's to build a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio, if it's to buy, own, start, grow a business, however you plan to get to that, financial freedom end game, I can assure you your banking relationships will be critical. So the three ways that I want to cover, I'm going to break them down one by one, and I'm going to go into the weeds on each a little bit. Number one is going to be the financial resources that they offer. As I said a little bit towards the earlier part of this live, the foundation of real wealth, organic, true real wealth, is going to be cash flow management. It's going to be credit, and it's going to be network. Those three things put together in a healthy balance, I can assure you, you are going to do just fine financially if you maximize those three things. If you can maximize your cash flow, the money going in, the money going out, and making sure it's doing so effectively, consistently, if you can make sure that you're building strong credit and overall financial reputation, that is going to be essential, needless to say. And if you can make sure you're building a strong network, that is going to be absolutely essential, because at the end of the day, we're surrounded around people. So building strong relationships, and I can assure you, you're not going to have any better network or get the roots to any better network than connecting strong relationships with your banks. That is going to be a phenomenal place to start building out a network and start building out, a group of individuals that are going to assist you and can add value to your journey in building and developing wealth. So getting into the weeds on this a little bit, when you look at your banking relationships, you think about your checking accounts, your savings accounts, you might think about credit cards. You might look at this and say, this is basic everyday stuff for my money, and not really be dealing with how it connects to building wealth. But when you stop and think about it, your cash flow, your in and out of your money is everything. It really is the foundation of everything. When you start looking at, the ways that you can make money and all this exciting stuff that's out here, none of that matters if you don't have good currency or flow of your money going in and out. You can have all the money in the world. If you don't have the ability to effectively distribute that money or somewhere to effectively inflow that money, then it's really irrelevant how much money you make, to be honest. Or at least it's going to put a serious dent in the value in the money that you make. So cash flow is essential. So when you're picking a primary financial institution or one of your top primary financial institutions, the main thing you want to focus on is what is their ability to serve my cash flow needs. And I'm not just talking about having bank accounts like checking and savings accounts, but I'm also talking about a full suite of products around cash flow management, access physically, access online, access, virtually, as far as like by phone. You need to be weighing out based on your needs and your financial circumstances. What is it that you need a bank to be able to provide you to be effective with your cash flow in your given situation? For some of us, 60, 70, 80% of what we do, 90% of what we do can be done online. For others of us, we may need to walk into the bank 3, 4, 5 times a week, depending on our circumstances and our business. It is important to understand that when you're selecting your primary bank, don't take it for granted. Selecting a bank that's going to have the right products and services based on your income and your financial circumstances. If you don't make a ton of money, or maybe you do make decent money, but you only get paid in cash, you only get paid in checks, that's all relevant if you're dealing with banks that only want electronic deposits, like direct deposits, to avoid service fees, for instance. But your cash flow is going to be essential. So when you're selecting your primary bank, or right now you're evaluating if your primary bank is serving you properly, as you're scaling up, your cash flow is essential. How they're providing value to you with your cash flow, because your cash flow is what's going to measure up to buying property, to buying your home, buying real property, investing, getting the capital you need to invest in a business. All of this sounds lighthearted, but then when you go back and it's like, oh, I need to get that SBA loan, or I want to get that real estate investor loan, a lot of times that's going to tie back to your cash flow in some form or fashion or another. Same thing goes for my next bullet point on underneath this tier: credit. Banks and financial institutions, brick and mortar banks and financial institutions, have broadened out into nearly one-stop shop. Most of the best available credit building tools are going to be at banks, brick and mortar banks. Online banks can fall in this category as well. Your ability to, use secure lines of credit or secure credit cards or loans, unsecured credit cards and loans, all of these different components. Nowadays, even your banking data, your deposit accounts is starting to get reported into your credit scores. Where I've shot videos about that. It's going on probably a year now. Vantage, FICO, etc. They're starting to integrate banking data, cash flow into your credit score. It's happening. So banks, again, becoming a one-stop shop. They're the ones, oftentimes, there's a lot of little small fintech companies popping up offering things too. But again, we're talking about full-scale primary banking relationships, trying to get as much value under one roof as we possibly can. Banks are going to be the primary place to go with the most credibility, by the way, on your credit report to start building out your credit. So we're talking about getting credit cards, scaling up credit cards, secure loans like your Navy Federal Pledge loan hack situation. That graduating you up to a credit profile that gets you high limit unsecured personal cards. High limit unsecured personal cards are going to get you what? Higher limit business credit cards. Higher limit business credit cards get you the credibility to roll over to lines of credit. You see where this is going. It snowballs. All of that starts with your very basic banking relationships. If you're smart, if you're using these things effectively. So the next thing is going to be a network. Believe it or not, if you probe that relationship properly, you'll be surprised at a decent financial institution, the connections that you can make. We're talking about not only the bankers themselves, the other specialists that they're going to work with, like loan officers, relationship managers for your business. That branches out into getting referrals for tax professionals. That branches out into insurance professionals, real estate agents, brokers of different sorts, for business brokers. That branches out all over the place. CDFIs, which are going to be alternative lending options. You will be surprised the relationships you can develop at just building a relationship with that banker first. When you get into your financial institution, do not take that part for granted. That is the bread and butter of production for banks. That is why branches still exist and bankers still exist. They have not, no matter how fancy automation is getting, AI is getting, it is nowhere near and may never be to a point where human-to-human interaction can be thrown to the wayside. There's just a certain amount of connection. There's a certain amount of effectiveness, just basic ancient, wisdom, if you will, and how humans can interact and what they can find out about each other from one another. The development of that relationship is still priceless to banks. So they still pour a lot of their resources into quality bankers, and they have a lot of different variations and connection points, right, to that banker to add value to the right client. So your job is to go in there and build an effective relationship, look good, and give these people a reason to prioritize you and stay in touch with you. You are one of many at most decent sized financial institutions. So your goal is to stand out. It doesn't mean you have to have $1 million to do so. I am a banker by trade. I do this every day. And I have clients that don't make a ton of money that are still at the top of my priority list, relatively speaking, because of the way that they handle their relationship and the potential I see in them and the way that they invest in the relationship. That's one of the most important things to us in banks is going to be how serious the client is. You might not have it all right now, but those of us that are, there long-term and building our careers there, we see the potential. We'll work with a client for months to get them where they're going, a year, 2 plus. I have business and personal clients I work with for a couple to a few years now, and they have 4 and 5 figures in some cases, but they're developing, they're growing. Everything that I recommend to them that makes sense, they're on it. At the end of the day, you can build a really strong relationship, and you do that by being serious. You do that by going in and being productive for that banker. It doesn't mean buying, or buying into everything they're selling. What it does mean is when things make sense for you financially, you're moving on the recommendations, you're developing your relationship. You might start with that Navy Federal Pledge Loan hack equivalent at a bank. But if that, you're building the right relationship with a banker, that banker has vision. They see that that's going to branch out to you potentially getting a credit card. You let them know your plans. Look, I'm trying to buy a home. I want to start buying real estate properties. I want to buy commercial real estate, start my business. I want to buy a commercial space for my existing business. When you start talking about a future and you're taking action, a banker sees that, I assure you, they'll be willing to pour into you. A decent one and a knowledgeable one will pour into you and ride that wave with you, because you'll be a quality client for the long term, and you'll likely be a referral source for them. So learn how to leverage these relationships, which I'm going to do a whole nother set of video, live stream possibly on how to effectively build a relationship with a banker. Because I promise you that opens up the network doors like crazy, because everything you need, they have a specialist for at decent financial institutions. And the next thing is just talk. If you're a relevant enough client, you're going to be a conversation, especially if you're looking for new referral sources for different things you need. It's like, oh, let me make this connection for you. So cash flow management, credit building, financial reputation building, and building a network. Banks cover those 3 exceptionally well. Number 2, scale by proximity. What does that basically mean? That is a term that I just came up with. But essentially what that is when you build a strong relationship with one bank, the way the system works and the proximity of the system, it gets advertised to other banks. This is where scale kicks in. This is where your ability to say, okay, well, I have this level of a credit score, this income level, but my positioning is now getting basically advertised out to other banks through credit reporting, stuff like EWS, all of these different systems, if you will, EWS being more for negative things like fraud, but systems like a EWS that are reporting your financial data and reporting basically the health of your relationship with the bank. These things are telling other financial institutions, especially on the credit side in particular, that you're a viable client. And trust me, in a sea of tens of millions of people banking in all different dynamics in this country, there's not a lot of people. Banks are still starving for quality clients that are serious about their banking relationships, that are low risk, that become familiar, that know how to use various different product services and really build out a strong, tentacles of relationships with them, and knows how to leverage their personal growth financially and become profitable to that bank. Banks are still always clawing for those clients. I promise you, as many clients as a bank has, only so many of them are actually low risk and profitable. When you can get over that hump and check that marker down, like, this client such and such, has been banking with us this long. They've built great credit. They're using multiple of our products. They're starting small investments. They got their family wrapped into the loop. Like, they got a household relationship. All of these different things makes you long-term profitable for the bank. And that gets pushed out to other banks. It starts to show. And these banks, there's data they share that we don't know. And there's, information that's shared that we do know. But it's up to you to leverage that. Leverage it. That leans into you being able to get multiple credit cards, get funding from multiple banking sources nearly at one time, qualify for so many different products and services that can overlap and complement each other. Again, these are going to be the fundamental things that scale you up to the capital you need to inject in the business, start a real estate portfolio, maybe start your first house hack. The things that the sexy YouTube videos that are out there that are constantly telling you about how to build wealth this way, build wealth that way, the fundamentals to that, the underwriting to that, the cash flow management to that, the credibility net to that, the network to that is going to start with your banking relationships 9 out of 10 times. Scale by proximity is my way of describing I look good in the eyes of one bank, and that bank's going to put out enough information for other banks to start to see a glimmer of my value and reach out and start to want my business. And these banks will start to compete. That's the whole comparable credit concept. Basically, when one bank gives you a really respectable credit limit, you go out to the next bank and they're like, oh, well, such and such bank trusted them with it and did their vetting services. I know how they do business. This might be a good client. We're going to give them a matching limit or potentially even beat it out a little bit and give them a higher limit. And banks keep doing that. And you look up, you got $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 limits across 3, 4, 5, 6 different banks. Now, when you go for business funding, what do you think happens? Now you're able to get 2 and 3 and 5, 4 and 5 and 6 times the funding because you built out those relationships with one bank at the core, at the start. One bank that trusted you, you built a relationship with them. They gave you a shot. Not all these other banks are following suit. It's scale by proximity. Even though they're all competitors, they're all communicating with each other. They're all constantly communicating with each other. So what that basically means is if you do right by them, just like you get reported when you do things wrong, when you do right by these banks, it becomes public knowledge. It becomes something public knowledge amongst the financial institutions, of course. It becomes something that they almost all can see, and you become a client worth competing for. Number 3, having the right bank will pour back into you. And so what that basically means, this is where my brick and mortar over online banks really starts to kick in. When you have the right financial institution, I've already alluded to a little bit in this video, in this live stream, the right financial institution sees your value and you get to a certain point with them, they're just going to start pouring more into you. They're going to offer you more products and services. They're going to offer you more perks. And most importantly, they're going to offer you their personnel on a more dedicated basis. When you first walk in the door and you're nothing and nobody, they're going to get possibly bounced all around the bank. If they're really professional, you get that person, they'll get you to the right person, you'll get done what you need to get done. But you, on average case basis, might get bounced around to 2 or 3 people in the bank because there's so much usually going on in some of these banks, especially ones of decent size. They don't have time to give every single client A-class, dedicated, concentrated service around the clock. So they have to weed out who's important and who isn't. And when you get pushed off to the teller, basically, or the assistant or whatever the case, no disrespect to them, but when you pushed into a situation where it's like what you come in for gets reduced to the most basic level qualified person in the branch, that's a different experience from when you walk in the door or when you pick up the phone or whatever the case may be. You're getting one of the highest ranking people in those branches, and sometimes even outside of the branch when you get to a certain level. That's at your beck and call, respectfully speaking, meaning that you're getting access to some of the best products and services, insider information on when opportunities might be popping up or available, unique tailored offers and opportunities that aren't available to the majority of clients, underwriting privileges and perks and streamlining, all kind of different things that start to scale up. The glove service gets wider and wider as you get higher and higher in the food chain with banks. That white glove concierge type service becomes abundant, especially in brick and mortar banks. This is why I separate from online financial institutions. They're great for rates. They're great for some of the low fees. There's no brick and mortar. They usually aren't humans involved much. So they got the opportunity to take capital they have and kind of pour it into these different components that make them look sexy. They pay higher rates than average. There's lower fee requirements or lower balance requirements, if any, for their bank accounts, all that other stuff. But you quickly find out when you need help with something and you got to chat versus being able to communicate with a human, or you quickly find out when you have to deal with somebody who's from a totally different nationality and you can't get done what you need to get done because you have a language barrier. When you get to a certain level with quality brick and mortar banks, They make sure you get a dedicated person that's your nationality, most likely. They make sure that you have almost nearly speed dial access to some customer service line, or maybe even a dedicated banker himself or herself. They're making sure that you're poured into. That makes you faster, more efficient, saves you time, and usually not only saves, but helps you make money if you're structuring things right. All of this scales you up. All of this scales you up to building wealth. I promise you, I'm laying out this concierge type family office type layout for you, but it is available to you as a working class person. It can become available to you when you at that first 5 or 6 figures. If you structure your relationships right, you can start to put, a mini version of this together and scale yourself up to that next tier level that gets you even higher in the food chain. So, more intelligent, better equipped, more products and services, better quality professionals, etc. Your banking relationship is essential. I promise you it is essential. I will continue to preach that on this channel as the core foundation on this channel for those of us that are truly building wealth from scratch. I don't care if you're making 4 or 5 figures a year, 6 or 7 figures a year. I guarantee you, if I break down your personal financial situation, I could probably show you how you can save or make yourself way more money just through your banking relationships alone, or get access to way more capital that can help you make way more money. That is literally the foundation of what I do on this channel. So I want you guys to chime in on this, that catch the replays. I know I see a handful of people in on the live stream. Somebody asked, where are you from? New Orleans. All right. So I don't see any questions around this particular topic, but if you catch the replay of this, drop your comments down below. Let me know what your thoughts, your questions, your curiosities are on the topic. Let me know where you are with your banking relationships now. I promise you, you will be astonished at what you're leaving on the table if you're not serious about your banking relationships. You're chasing all these money-making methodologies. You're chasing all of these so-called business opportunities, these investment strategies and hacks. I assure you, the very basic resources you have in front of you have a lot more potential and are a lot more in your control. You don't have to trust invisible people out there in the ethos, the ethernet, that are promising you and selling you all of these hype dreams, etc. I assure you that if you took the time out and dug and had the right guidance to show you what you're looking for, your banking relationship is golden. Your banking relationships are golden towards where you're trying to get financially. And you can do it a lot more independently and build healthier relationships with the right people if you go that route versus just following all of these gimmicks that are on the internet. But comment down below. Again, if you're catching this live stream, or more importantly, if you're catching the replay, comment down below. Let me know what your banking relationships are. Let me know what you think about what's important to you when you're selecting your financial institutions. A lot of y'all have never left a relationship y'all set up when y'all were in high school, or your parents passed down to you when you became an adult. A lot of you don't even think about it. So comment down below and let me know you're high intentional or serious have you been about your banking relationships, and do you see the value of them, about what I'm talking about with them being able to help you lay down a foundation to building real wealth. Comment it down below. To all my pioneers, welcome back. To my new viewers, welcome in. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel so this channel can continue to put out content, information, and guidance that will support you. Tie in with me on Instagram. That'll be in the description eventually on this live stream. You can also find a link to work with me one-to-one. I will make sure that gets added into the description as well, so I can not only provide value around your banking relationships, lending needs, small business needs, etc. I can help you with a ton of different aspects of your financial journey. So if you want to get some curated guidance from a professional that's been doing it for themselves and doing it for thousands of people over the last decade plus, then get in the description down below or comment and let me know that you're interested, and I'll tie in with you there. And then I want each and every one of you to stay focused, stay in motion. I'll see y'all soon.